The Hodgson family had lived in the modest house on Green Street in Enfield, North London, for years without incident. It was a typical suburban home, unremarkable in every way except for the events that would make it infamous. The year was 1977, and the Hodgsons, consisting of Peggy, a single mother, and her 4 children, Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy, had no idea that their lives were about to be turned upside down by forces beyond their comprehension. It began innocuously enough. One evening, as the family was winding down for the night, Peggy heard a commotion coming from her daughter's room. She hurried upstairs to find Janet and Margaret wide-eyed and pale, pointing at a chest of drawers that had inexplicably moved several feet across the room. "Did you girls move this?" Peggy asked, trying to mask her growing unease. "No, Mum," Janet replied, her voice trembling. "It moved by itself." Peggy brushed it off as a prank or perhaps her daughter's overactive imaginations, but over the next few days, the disturbances escalated. Knocking sounds reverberated through the walls at all hours. Furniture shifted when no one was near. Objects flew across rooms as if hurled by invisible hands. The family began to live in a constant state of fear and confusion. One night, as Peggy lay in bed, she was jolted awake by a loud crash from downstairs. She rushed to the living room to find the furniture overturned and her children cowering in the corner. "Mum, it's getting worse," Margaret whispered. "We have to do something." Desperate for help, Peggy contacted the police. Officers arrived and witnessed the phenomena firsthand. A chair moved on its own, and a strange knocking sound seemed to follow them around the house. With no explanation and nothing they could do, the police left, advising Peggy to seek further assistance. Word of the strange occurrences at the Hodgson residence spread quickly, attracting the attention of paranormal investigators, reporters, and curious neighbors. Among those who came to investigate were Maurice Grosse and Guy Leon Playfair, members of the Society for Psychical Research. They were seasoned investigators, but nothing had prepared them for what they would encounter in Enfield. Grosse and Playfair set up camp in the Hodgson home, determined to document the events. They witnessed furniture moving, objects levitating, and even heard voices that seemed to come from thin air. The most chilling manifestation was a deep, gravelly voice that spoke through Janet, the 11-year-old daughter. The voice claimed to be that of Bill Wilkins, a man who had died in the house years earlier. "Just before I died, I went blind," the voice rasped through Janet. "Then I had a hemorrhage and I fell asleep and died in the chair in the corner downstairs." The investigators were baffled. Janet's voice and demeanor changed completely when the entity spoke through her. Medical experts who examined her found no evidence of trickery or mental illness. The voice recordings were analyzed and found to be beyond the capability of an 11-year-old girl to produce. As the haunting continued, the Hodgson family grew more and more exhausted. They lived in constant fear, unsure of what would happen next. Grosse and Playfair tried various methods to communicate with the entity, hoping to find a way to end the torment. They conducted seances, set up cameras and recording equipment, and even brought in mediums, but the activity only seemed to escalate. One night, Janet was violently thrown from her bed, hitting the wall with a sickening thud. She screamed in pain and terror as her siblings and mother rushed to her side. The room filled with an oppressive, malevolent presence that seemed to suffocate the air itself. Grosse and Playfair, who were present, could only watch in horror, powerless to stop the unseen force. The investigators decided to bring in a priest to perform an exorcism. Father McKenna arrived, armed with holy water, a crucifix, and the rites of exorcism. As he began the ceremony, the house erupted in chaos. Objects flew across the room, walls shook, and the entity's voice screamed in rage through Janet. "Leave us alone," the voice bellowed. "This is our home." Father McKenna pressed on, his voice steady and unwavering as he recited the prayers. The atmosphere grew more intense, the air thick with tension. Just as it seemed the house would tear itself apart, there was a sudden, deafening silence. The oppressive presence lifted, leaving the family and investigators gasping for breath. For a few days, the house was quiet. The Hodgsons dared to hope that the ordeal was over, but their reprieve was short-lived. The activity resumed, though less violently than before. Grosse and Playfair continued their investigations, documenting over 2,000 incidents of paranormal activity over the course of their stay. The media attention brought skeptics and debunkers, many of whom accused the Hodgsons of hoaxing the entire affair for attention or financial gain. Janet, in particular, was scrutinized and accused of faking the phenomena. Under pressure, she admitted to playing pranks on occasion but insisted that the majority of the events were real and beyond her control. The haunting gradually subsided over the next couple of years, though the family never fully escaped its shadow. Peggy Hodgson lived in the house until her death in 2003, maintaining that the events were real and that they had been tormented by a malevolent presence. The Enfield Poltergeist remains one of the most well-documented and controversial cases of paranormal activity. Gross and Playfair's extensive notes, recordings, and eyewitness testimonies provide a compelling account of the haunting, though skeptics continue to argue against its authenticity. To this day, the true nature of the Enfield Poltergeist remains a mystery. Whether a genuine haunting, an elaborate hoax, or a complex combination of both, the events at 284 Green Street have left an indelible mark on the annals of paranormal investigation. The Hodgson family's ordeal serves as a chilling reminder of the unexplained phenomena that lurk at the edges of our understanding, waiting to be discovered. And so, the story of the Enfield Poltergeist endures, a haunting tale that continues to captivate and terrify those who dare to explore the unknown.